bringing you another fine podcast from Art Report Today.
My name is Michael Delgado, and I'm on special assignment for ArtReportToday.com. My guest today is the influential light and space artist Peter Lodato. Lodato's work spans several decades and began in the 1960s when he created installations exploring the nature of perception, specifically in the way physical spaces can be transformed into immersive experiences. He's included in numerous esteemed collections, including the Brooklyn Museum, the Seattle Art Museum, the Dallas Museum of Art, and the San Diego Museum of Contemporary Art. The Frederick Weissman Foundation curated an extensive solo retrospective of Lodato's work in 2000, and his work has been exhibited at the Whitney, MoCA LA, and LACMA. Lodato began working in a small studio in the Union Hardware Building next to MacArthur Park, a very tough part of town in that era, and it remains so. But like other rough-and-tumble artist enclaves, it produced its share of successful creatives, like Jamie Odgers, and fashion designer Sue Wong, who would launch a fashion empire. I caught up with Peter on the phone from his Venice Beach studio. I was aware that he had taught at Art Center in Pasadena, and then he went on to also teach at the University of California, Irvine, which would become known for its faculty. In addition to Peter, instructors would include Tony DeLapp, Larry Bell, Via Selmans, Robert Irwin, and Ed Moses, among other notable artists. Under this faculty, students that would become influential included none other than Michael Asher, Nancy Buchanan, Chris Burden, Ned Evans, James Turrell, and Robert Walker, just to name a few. But I didn't know that at the Art Center, Peter was teaching art history.
I have a pretty good background in art history, and I have that from my mother from growing up. But
you didn't get a degree in it or anything.
No,
Or did you?
I'm not an art historian, and I taught the history of 19th century French painting.
I wondered if the French Impressionists and their preoccupation with color and light, think of, say, a Cézanne landscape, had influenced his work.
Well, that's a good question. Not really. I mean, my work really came from abstract expressionism from Newman and Rothko, were the first kind of people that I plugged into.
Now, did you know those guys, or talk or because Barnett? I mean, Rothko wasn't probably around for you, but Newman was, right?
Not really. I mean, I just knew them. I knew Newman from watching KCET. They had there was a show, interviews with artists, and he was one of them. And this is when I was very young, but he made a real impression on me.
The influence of Rothko and Newman are plain enough to see in Lodato's feathered edges and the sense of the canvas as a void. He, however, began with installations and exploring the use of light and shadow with reflective surfaces.
First, it started with mirrors and lights, projecting shadows and reflections. And then I realized that I could paint the same sort of sensations on the wall. And there was a period of time where I discovered this stuff called Murano. It's like pearlescence, and I used to spray these areas on the wall, and then draw out rectangles and define the edge with the white wall paint, and so what you would see would depend on where you are in relationship to the light source and the reflection on the wall, if that makes any sense. And then the Murano, what that paint does is that where the highlight is, it reflects one color, and as the light diffuses, it turns into its complement. Rather than making these kind of ephemeral, rectangles on the wall, I started painting really saturated color rectangles and black that were very matte, very flat. So the intention was they would be like voids of color. And then the edge of the rectangles would, because of the intensity of the color, would produce an after image of the opposite color. So the perception of getting, seeing saturated color and producing after image, it became very physical, and that was the thrust of making those kind of paintings.
Peter also acknowledges the strong influence of a pioneering artist of the time as well.
At the time, there was a reaction to abstract expressionism, which came. The next guys were like post-painterly abstraction, and then I guess Bob Irwin, seeing those discs, and who else? Maybe Flavin. The Real had a big influence on me. But Irwin was a really good friend of a friend of mine named Ed Wirtz, who was married to Melinda Wirtz, and Melinda was the head of fine arts there. And I used to go down, ride with her, and how I got that job is that Craig Kaufman was teaching there, and he went on sabbatical, so I got to take his place for a year.
Soon after gaining recognition for his installations, one of Peter's friends posed a fundamental question that would alter Peter's path forward. After a large show curated by the Frederick Wiseman Foundation at Pepperdine University, Peter transitioned away from working in 3 dimensions and concentrated on painting.
It was my friend Tom Woodle. I had a show, I think it was at, what's that place? Pepperdine, the Weissman Museum.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I did an installation, and I had also a bunch of other things. So I think I went to see the show with Tom Woodle, and distinctly he says, "What's holding you back?" And I said, "What do you mean, what's holding me back?" And he says, "Why don't you just make paintings on canvas? I mean, why are you, why is it important to do that?" And I had to mull that over quite a bit, and it made sense. And so that's when I started making the paintings on the canvas.
It seems Peter had also grown disenchanted with the temporary nature of installation art.
Well, it was largely a motive to preserve the painting. So, when I do an installation, they'd go away, or transient things. And I got to where I really liked the painting aspect of the wall paintings, and putting it on canvas was a way of preserving that. And also, it was a way of, painting with oil paint to make soft edges and crisp edges and all these different things that oil paint has the potential to do. Then that became a part of the vocabulary. So it was really great to be liberated in this sense and to try a bunch of different things.
In Peter's masterful manipulation of paint, he coaxes his colors to vibrate, float, and create that spellbinding sense of void. Early on, he used paints favored by Hollywood set painters because they're so flat, that is to say, matte and non-reflective. I wondered whether or not he got involved in the chemistry of his materials in the way that, say, Yves Klein formulated his signature blue. Peter said he uses oil paints like anyone else, but he did let us in on one little trick of his trade.
I had to research colors that would be very flat or matte, so there would be no surface reflection, and that would give the appearance of a void or deep space. I try to keep them as flat as possible, and one way is that it's achieved is, painting in layers, and then taking a hake brush and fanning the surface, so to get rid of, to make it very flat and unified. And so that's that's how I do it.
Peter's canvases have a distinct palette, and I wondered if there is an underlying meaning to specific colors.
One of the things, the motivation of the color, were an awareness of the chakras in the body. That the colors, the chakras go from red to, white on the top. And the red chakra is the genitals. Orange is the gut or the hara, just below the navel. Yellow is the liver or the cleansing color. Green is the heart, or the color of compassion. Blue is the color of the throat, which is towards spirituality. And of course, purple is the combination of blue towards spirituality and red, sex. So that is the purple, which is thought to be the wisdom chakra. And then all the chakras together are white, all white together. So that's the crown chakra, which is on the top of the head. So that kind of thinking really influenced the way that the reasons, the motives to use color. I'm making a series of paintings that are the same thing. They're 40 by 30 canvases that are the colors of the chakras. They're there's a border of white, and the edges are very soft, and there's no surface, so they're kind of like voids of color.
Yeah,
and I've been making. I went to the Pantheon, I think in the early '80s, and I took photographs of the oculus in the Pantheon, and there wasn't enough light. But in the photographs, it was just like kind of a moon image floating at the top of the rectangle. And that became an image that I've been using for quite some time.
It's a damn shame that his current exhibit at the William Turner Gallery here in LA has been paused for the pandemic. But you can see the exhibit virtually and learn more about this master of light and space at williamturnergallery.com. I highly encourage you to do so. Peter is a fantastic painter and a very interesting artist and a really nice guy. For Art Report Today, I'm Michael Delgado. Thanks for listening.
This has been a production of Art Report Today. Find your inspiration in the arts every day at artreporttoday.com.